Okay, real quickly, let's jump into the attributes of God. You don't have to think very deeply about this, but I just want to survey for you systematic theology. God has 4 kinds of attributes. Here's one, his incommunicable attributes. Theologians divide attributes in 2 parts, communicable and incommunicable. Incommunicable is what only God can be and do. Communicable is something he offers to us to respond to. God is independent, which means he's self-existent. Remember I told you about how Satan began? Satan, the universe, and you and me are not self-existent. We have to be held up. We have to have someone give us life. Do you understand? The only reason I'm standing here talking to you is God is holding my life and allowing it to continue. If he lets go, whoop, there goes my marker in my life. That's self-existent. God is the only one that doesn't need anything. Doesn't need anything. We do. The sun does. The sun is burning itself up. Millions of tons per second. The sun. Everything in this universe is wearing down, except God. He's self-existent. He is unchangeable. We call that immutability. He's eternal. Eternity means he sees all time the same. Look at this. He is looking from heaven at Abraham right now, the same as he's looking at you and me, the same as he's looking at the people in the millennium. Now that does not fit in my brain, because to me, Abraham is a past event. God doesn't have past events. Do you understand that? He calls himself, I am the great I what? Am. He's eternally, constantly existing, but seeing everything. That's what his eternity, he sees all time the same. Omnipresence means he's present everywhere, but he acts differently in different places. When he was back on Mount Sinai, he was like a burning fire up there talking to Moses. But when he was, at the shore of the Red Sea, he was taking the wheels off of Pharaoh's chariots. He's acting differently, but he's everywhere present. The same God is everywhere the same, but he acts differently. Unity, now that's a big one that we need to learn. Most people think that God has this love and grace are huge, and then he's got this other attribute, wrath, holiness. And they think those are kind of his mini problematic, the ones that kind of get us in trouble ones. No, all God's attributes are equally important. They're all the same. He emphasizes all of them. Now, his communicable attributes there are 5 of those. His spirituality, we're spiritual. I am a spirit that's right now running around inside of this tent, the body. Invisible. This idea that God is invisible, yet and there's a part of me that's invisible. My mind, that immortal part of me is invisible. Knowledge. God allows us to have knowledge, but God's knowledge is the highest. He doesn't learn things, discover things, or count things. He is omniscient. Now you say, what's the difference? Well, I took all my systematic theologies and I looked at them, and they named the same attributes different ways. Some theologians call God's omniscience, but that word isn't in the Bible, so this word is in the Bible, knowledge, so they call it his knowledge. So that's why I put both of them up there. He is truthful, he is faithful. Those are his communicable attributes. Now, the next are his moral attributes. You've heard of all these. God's goodness, his love, his mercy, grace, and patience. Those are all interrelated. His holiness, his peace. Peace means orderliness. Oh, want me to stop for a second on that one? The more godlike you are, the more orderly your life is. The more ungodlike you are, the more disorderly your life is. Did you know the less of God there is, the more things go to disorder? And look how our world is. So God is a God of peace or order. To be complete is to be order. Righteousness and justice. We covered his justice and why he's judging the nations. Jealousy. Did you know with God, jealousy is positive? For us, jealousy is negative. I wish I had that green jacket or sweatshirt. I wish that I had as much hair as some of you have, because I'm always cold. Do you know how hard it is to be cold? All of your blood is up here, and mine is radiating all the heat, and I just get cold all the time. So I wish I had, Bonnie has so much beautiful, lovely hair. I just wish the Lord would give me some. No, that's human jealousy. What's God's jealousy? He seeks to protect his honor. He is jealous for your attention. He is jealous for your loyalty. His wrath, look at this, he intensely hates, look at this. What word is that right there? All. There aren't little sins to God. Be careful about that. We like to think that we're an exception, that my sin is not as bad as theirs. God is equally intensely hating all sins. And finally, his attributes of purpose, his will, his freedom, his omnipotence, that's his power and sovereignty. You've heard of the sovereignty of God or the power of God, his perfection, his blessedness, his beauty. The reason I define some of these for you out of the systematic theology is I love them. The beauty of God is that God has everything desirable. Now you're seeing why David loved him so much. What did David say? There's nothing on earth I desire like I desire you. You have everything I long for. Oh, really, David? What were you doing with Bathsheba and with Uriah? We're not perfect. You understand that? Even though we fail, even though we sin, even though we are tempted and do not respond correctly, God knows down deep the desire of our heart. And you know what David said? I know I failed, I know I sinned, and he confessed it before the whole world. How do you like that? David's sin and confession are forever settled in heaven. Did you know in heaven the record of what David did is forever written down? It'll never go away. Wouldn't that be awful if the worst thing you ever did in your life will never be erased? Not if you know the Lord. And God has everything desirable. He saw that in David's heart. He said, David, even though you broke all 10 commandments, even though you did such a terrible sin, and even though it affected your earthly life, forever in heaven, when I see you, I would say, that's the man after my own heart. That's God's grace. But David believed God was beautiful. Do you believe God is beautiful? Is he everything you desire? Or do you desire other things more than him? Do you know what the idolatry of this generation is? Our generation right now? It isn't that we love our music and our games and our pictures and all of our social interactions more than God. We just have put them both on the same shelf. They're both equally important. And what we say is, I'm struggling to have time to read the Bible, but as soon as we get a free moment, do we run to our Bible or do we run to our digital device? Which do you go to first? Think about that. And see, that's why David was a man after God's own heart, because he said, there's nothing on earth I desire above you. And then God's glory, kavod, his heaviness.